Oh, wait. Let me fix that footer.
Because
Just
we're
kidding.
live. Yeah, we're
Hi.
live now. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dr. Will Show. I am your host, Dr. Will, and I am here with Dr. Howard, Nicole Howard, and we will be speaking about the doctoral journey. And Dr. Howard will be here sharing her experiences, and I may chime in with a few of my own. So, welcome to the show, Dr. Howard. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you. How about you?
Excellent, feeling great. Planning on checking out a movie today.
Oh, that's
Um,
nice.
yes. Haven't been to the movie since Guardians of the Galaxy, so it's been a long time. Uh, for those who don't know who you are, will you please introduce yourself?
Well, I am Nicole Howard, and I currently am in the Santa Ana Unified School District as a program specialist. I also have taught fourth grade there, and I'm also part-time faculty at Chapman University. And I do have quite a unique educational journey, and coming into the field of education, this is second career for me. Starting in initially in the entertainment industry, working for Paramount Pictures and studios and networks, just sort of discovered that I needed something that had a little bit more purpose to it, and I needed to feel a bit more that I was contributing to society and to the lives of our future, our youth who would become future adults. So I made that transition into education, and that kind of summarizes who I am.
All right. So, what were your motivations for pursuing a doctoral program?
Well, I mean, there are many things, of course. I could start from the very simple things as wanting to leave a mark for my own children, wanting them to see me go through the process, be a part of my process, and hopefully to encourage them to follow in my footsteps or make some decisions that may be good for them, but just seeing me pursue my path of education, I hope that they would pursue a path as well. But on another level, I wanted to widen my sphere of influence, and I felt as if teaching in the classroom is powerful. I mean, that's, you're getting in, you're getting the job done, you're on the front lines. I also wanted to somehow work with teachers, and as a part-time professor in higher ed, I really enjoyed working with teachers or new teachers or pre-service teachers. And that was my motivation for pursuing the doctoral program, because that would enable me to do more of that.
Hmm. So, you graduate, you have the title. What does the title doctor mean to you, and are you used to people calling you doctor?
I am not used to people calling me doctor at all. And when I began the program, teaching in elementary school, I wanted my students to know that adults continue to learn; they're lifelong learners. And I ended up looping with some of my students from third to fourth grade. And when they heard that I finished the program, they wanted to call me doctor. And it was uneasy for me. And so I asked them, well, why would you want to change what you call me? I haven't changed. I am still Mrs. Howard. I haven't changed. And some of them continued to call me Mrs. Howard, and some started calling me Mrs. Dr. Howard, and because they just wanted to say doctor. But really, for me, it just means what I described before about the motivation to be here. It just means that I'm a little bit more equipped to do the job, to do the work that I want to do. And I, in some instances, prefer not to be called Dr. Howard and just to be called Nicole or Mrs. Howard.
Hmm. I know for me, sometimes I am really hesitant and really like, oh, call me Will, don't call me doctor. And then in certain circumstances, in certain circles, I'd want to be called doctor because of sort of the people that I'm around. And at that point, I want that recognition. But that's my own ego. So
No,
uh,
you know what? I mean,
that's
and
how
that's
I
growth.
feel.
That's real talk, because I think that there are some settings where I would prefer not to be called Nicole. And I know I have a much younger, well, I like to think I look a little bit younger. So when I'm teaching in higher ed and I have students who might maybe I'm concerned about their perception of me or how they view me or the level of respect that I'm expecting is not, or it's not what I'm expecting, I would prefer to be called Dr. Howard, just to kind of make the lines clear. At the same time, I have students who will call me Nicole and have the utmost respect for me. And so it does depend. I know when you go to AERA, I like being called Dr. Howard at AERA because I'm amongst doctors, and I want that to be known, that I've worked hard for that. So I do appreciate it being recognized.
I hear what you're saying, because we'll get to the dissertation later. But I know for me, sometimes if I ever feel slighted, and again, it's the ego thing, it always goes back to I wrote that doggone dissertation. So, you know what I'm saying? I got mine, so that's the ego thing. We'll get to that later. So you mentioned earlier that you graduated from Chapman University. What made you choose that program over others, and how long did it take you to complete your program?
Wow. Well, I did when I first started teaching part-time in higher ed. It was at Chapman University, and so I had an advantage when it came to pursuing the doctorate there, because I knew the people in the College of Educational Studies. So a plus for me was knowing that I'm stepping in here. I'm taking this big step to do this doctorate, and I'm doing it amongst people who I know. And that was, a huge benefit of going to Chapman. Also, Chapman, I don't profess to be a social justice researcher, but there is a huge concern in the Chapman community for social justice, and I think that was definitely a positive. Within our program, we also had the ability to take courses outside of our department. And I definitely wanted to be able to take like my quantitative research methods in other colleges, and I knew that Chapman would allow for that. So that was another reason why I decided to pursue the doctorate at Chapman. And it actually took me, let's see, I did what was it? I think it was three and a half years, because I went every summer. I took courses in the summer, and I took 2 courses in the summer. So although I was considered a part-time student, that summer coursework made the journey, or it reduced the amount of years that it would take me to finish. And my dissertation work, I was able to sort of start a little bit early and do that along the way.
Awesome. It took me 4 years, coursework including dissertation, and I remember joking to folks that I was going to, when I finished, I was going to go outside and cuss. I'm Dr. Will, mother, whatever. It never happened. It was something after my defense, and they were like, okay, we started this with 3 doctors. How many do we have now? And they were like, oh, we have 4. And I was excited, and it was and it was such a build up in me. I didn't even know what to necessarily to say or do. I do remember getting on Twitter saying, I'm done, y'all. I'm done. I've just defended this thing. I'm doctor. But I was just so like yes. I didn't know, how to outwardly sort of respond, because I had literally planned to just like, I'm the man. But it never came out that way. So.
No, you know what? I 100% I understand. It's like anticlimactic, right? You go through this whole process, and you feel like inside while you're going through it, you feel that at the end you are going to celebrate. And I talked about the celebration. I'm celebrating. I'm going to travel. I'm going to go do a big trip, and it just I felt like there was more work to be done after I finished. And so I could celebrate inside. I was excited about it, but I still feel like there's work. There's work I have to do here. So.
Oh yeah, work, but no more academic writing. I'm done.
You're done?
I'm done. My chair was like, Will, you're doing this stuff, you should publish. And I'm like, I'm done. No more APA for me. I'm done.
No, well, I like the writing, so that's that could be why I felt like there's more work to be done.
I'm done. See, that's why you and I are doing this podcast on video, and I'm not somewhere writing because I'm done. You know, and again, we'll get to the dissertation later on, but people don't understand that when you're writing it, particularly to get to that point, you have certain strengths into writing. You get to a point, and you may write 20 pages, and you feeling this. What are you trying to say here? And you go, I thought I could write, and so now you got to go back and make those changes, and that yeah, I'm once going through that, I'm like, okay, I'm done. That's one process that I'm done, because peer review, I've heard stuff about that, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm done. I've gone through that, back and forth. So yeah, I'm kind of done with that. Unless I'm done. Okay, so let's get to your doctoral program. Describe your program, and what did you enjoy most about either your coursework, classmates, or professors?
I guess I jumped ahead a little bit too, right? Because the program itself, I really enjoyed the flexibility. I really enjoyed coming into the beginning of a semester or right before the beginning of the semester and being able to select courses that I felt fit with my interests and fit with where I was looking to go with my dissertation work. So that was a huge benefit to having the program I have. The College of Educational Studies at Chapman, it's not large in that there are just numbers and numbers and numbers of faculty there, but it is large in personality. So there were many different faculty personality types that I learned to work with, and had the benefit of doing some projects with a few faculty there. So I do like that the faculty look to connect with the students, and it's not always your typical I've heard the stories about it feeling like you're in a sorority or a fraternity again when you're going through your doctoral program, and there's not a whole lot of that at Chapman. So I really enjoyed that about the professors. And then the classmates, they came from many different walks of life too. We had some history teachers at local districts. We had community leaders, so many different people come in, so there was great diversity amongst the classmates in our program. And as far as coursework, also when you talk about that writing piece, I like that some of the faculty there encouraged the writing for potential publication. So they wanted purposeful writing, yes, to fulfill the requirements in the course, but let's write this so that you can publish and start building for your future career if you are, or if you're in your career, build for that next step, for that next level.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So anyone who's in a doctoral program, you are going to face many highs and lows, and often it is a very solo, insular sort of experience, because your family and your friends, if they've never gone through the process, they have no idea what it is like. How did you stay the course when you felt sort of the world was closing in on you? Did you have a support group, or did you sort of rely more on your friends or even some of your classmates?
Well, I'm probably very spoiled in this area because my husband had been through a doctoral program. So he went through at USC years before I made the decision to go through. So that, of course, is valuable when going through the process. And us having children in the home, he really just understood what it meant when I said, I need to write and it's like everything else shuts down. He knows how I have to focus, what I needed to do to focus, and also was able to help keep me balanced. So if I was going too far into isolation, he knew just the right moment to say, okay, it's family time, let's get together, and it not feeling like I had to make a decision between my program and my family. So that was very helpful. And also just having my really family was big for me in this. And that's another thing I can definitely, another plus about the Chapman program. When you come in and you do your initial reception, they talk about the importance of family supporting. They invite all the family in, and they kind of give the family a pep talk and let them know what it's going to look like. So I definitely had the family support more so, I'd say, than the friends. Friends were there to support, and no friends gave me a hard time. But at the end of the day, when I needed to write that paper, 9 times out of 10, it wasn't a friend that was saying, "Oh, sure, go write your paper." It was the family here in the house that was saying, "Okay, we understand. No movie today. Okay, we understand." So, family was huge for me in the process.
Excellent, excellent. So you're going through your program, and now you're finished. How did how did your program meet your expectations? And if you could make any changes to the program, what would they be?
Hmm. The changes question is a tough one. I'm sure that's tough probably for a lot of people, but I, I'd say that the program definitely met my expectations in that I expected to be in a position where I would need to challenge myself a bit more, and I'd need to kind of step outside of my comfort zone and explore things beyond the coursework. And that was definitely the case, because there may be a course that I had taken maybe on something related to theory, and I may have a great wealth of information in front of me, but I had to stay thirsty. I had to keep going after what either digging deeper into the content that was in front of me, or go seek more information on things that maybe were not covered in the coursework. So I'm big on the whole learning theory piece, and I loved the quantitative research component. So one thing, of course, if I had to add anything else, I would add more quantitative research methods courses.
Ooh, she said she you like this. Ooh, I'm like, I hate quantitative research. Ooh, the numbers and all that. Mm-mm. I
That's the good stuff.
I I use well the my research methodology was actually research, but in terms of actually analyzing my data, it was qualitative.
Mm,
So it was a lot of data to comb through, but I was able to tell the story of the teachers in my program as they were learning and going through
mm,
building a personal learning network on Twitter. And
mm.
so for me, that was a great experience to see, when to go through and say, oh, these teachers had these experiences, these teachers had those experiences, these has experiences, and why some of those experiences may have been a result of X, Y, and Z. So that was great for me. But yeah, if I had to, you know, get back 100, 200 surveys and go through all of that data and the T and all that, that would have drove me crazy. I'm like, no.
That's the good stuff. That's the good stuff.
Hey, for y'all who can work with those numbers and do all of that, that is awesome. In my class and doing that, I quickly realized that qualitative was going to be my friend, and not quantitative. As a school leader, because you mentioned your leadership and what you wanted to do, certain changes you wanted to make. What would you say was the greatest impact of your coursework on your day-to-day practice, and how has your research shaped the way you lead?
Hmm. Well, this connects to the research piece for me, because I really believe in making informed decisions. and you need all the information you can get in front of you. And so the coursework that I had in my program, specifically that quantitative coursework, really taught me the importance of seeing the data and understanding the purpose for the data, or making decisions, the next decision based upon the data in front of me. And so in my practice, there's much of the same now, where I look at what's in front of me. And so that data can be very different, what I'm collecting. It could be student voice. It could be understanding what the students want, looking at all of that first before I make a decision. And the same can be said about working with teachers. If I am designing a professional development experience as a leader, I need to know what the needs are of the teachers, not just what I want to give them. So that understanding the research and what the needs are of the people who I'm working with. Those are two key things from my coursework that have informed my practice.
So how has having your doctorate opened doors for you professionally?
Well, that's kind of hard for me to say, because I think it goes back to that respect thing we were talking about. We all know that when you're a teacher in the classroom, and for me, I mentioned I'm transitioning from the classroom out into program specialists for our district. But as a teacher in the classroom, we know we don't necessarily pursue the doctorate for money, right? So that's not the purpose. It's really just to get this information and this new knowledge. And so professionally, you know what it does is it really is an information piece. Now for higher ed, it definitely positions me to look at tenure track, faculty positions. It positions me to look at those positions that may even widen my sphere of influence more. But as far as what I'm doing now, I think it's the knowledge. As I mentioned, it's what I gained from the program, through the program, that really has helped me professionally more than the title of doctor.
Awesome. Now, some people, this is the part of the program where whenever I tell teachers or I tell someone, hey, go get your doctorate, they always say, I don't want to write a dissertation. That's their thing. I understand. I am happy I wrote mine. In the beginning of my program, I didn't want to do one, and I was not happy about it, because a lot of EDD programs they have a project. They don't have a dissertation. Even Harvard's EDD program did not have a dissertation. So I'm glad that I had to write one, because now I have that body of work. I have that out there to say, I did write a dissertation, adding to the body of knowledge of personal learning networks and Twitter for PD and all that stuff. So I'm glad that I have that. So let's get to the dissertation for folks out there. And let's see if we can inform them and sort of alleviate any stress or misgivings they may have. So what was the focus of your dissertation?
Well, my dissertation focused on STEM achievement in algebra for female secondary students, and I specifically looked at the predictability of their levels of interest, identity, self-efficacy, and the level of parental involvement in how the predictability of those factors in their algebra achievement. And you started out with a large data set that had boys and girls. It's the high school longitudinal study. So it's about over 19,000 students. And I then did some data cleaning and ended up with just the girls, which was close to 4,000 girls that were transitioning from, so it starts with them in 8th grade. And follows, this study is a longitudinal study, so it follows them from 8th grade, and by the time I analyzed the data, they were in 11th grade. So I had 2 waves of data to look at in response to the questions about their self-efficacy and their identity, interest, and the parents answer the questions on parental involvement. So that was the topic of the dissertation was just, in short, the STEM achievement of high school girls in algebra.
Mhm. And how did you negotiate the process of revision and iteration? Now, my dissertation is so much better than, thanks to, because my chair was on, she was on point about, okay, we need to add this. What are your thoughts here?
Mm-hmm.
She was really great in helping me shape my dissertation. But like I mentioned earlier, it's one of those things to where when you're when you're in the groove of writing, and then someone takes this stuff that you have put your heart in, and you're thinking, this is great, this is War and Peace, I'm going to win the Nobel Prize on this bad boy, this is the Pulitzer, and then someone goes back and says, you got to do this over again.
Right.
Excuse me. And that happens often throughout the process. How are you able to sort of mentally get yourself together to keep going, revision after revision?
Well, it was tough. First draft, it felt like I have no idea what I'm doing. I know how to write if I have one topic and I just write on that one topic, but I had to pull so many pieces. And so you know how it is. You go and you want to read other dissertations to see how they're done first, and you find out as the more dissertations that you look at from other people, they're so different that you feel even a little bit more a little bit less focused because you don't know if yours should be structured the way that one was structured or that one or that one. So there was a bit of that uncertainty going in already for me. And my advisor was a strong quantity. So I kind of knew going in that I would get some hard knowledge or some hard feedback from him. And it really was done gracefully. I mean, there were things that, and you talk about the iterations, I mean, a lot of it had to do with, well, what about running this? Did you think about, this procedure over that procedure? Because I know with my exams, my qualifying exams, the procedure I had was propensity score matching, which I didn't even use. And it was sitting down with my advisor. He just asked some questions. So I see you want to use that procedure. What questions are you trying to answer? What are you getting at with that procedure? And I thought about it, and I said, well, maybe I'm not answering the questions I thought I was looking to answer with that in mind. And so that's how he's helped steer me in the right direction. Instead of saying, no, that's not what we need to have, you need to have this. And the whole committee in the end was very gracious that way, where the comments or the feedback that I received back were more framed with questions for me to have me ask myself questions about my process. And so I stayed connected to the work that way because I knew I needed to answer these questions for myself to understand where I was going. What was I doing and why? But again, that first round was the toughest. It was the hardest piece. I'm putting it all out there. You're putting all your work out there that you feel like you said, you feel like, okay, I did it, and you just don't know what's gonna come back your way. But I felt okay when it came back because I knew I had another opportunity to put the next version forward, and now I had a little bit more direction, and then I still felt I felt good in some areas too, because the things that maybe I thought were going to be problematic were not problematic. So that felt comforting.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so you mentioned your committee earlier, and what can be off-putting is when your advisor, chair, or mentor, whatever title your university gives, signs off on something, and then it goes to the whole committee for approval, and then you got that one person, that one person on that committee is like, and you're sitting there going like, oh my gosh, I just got it approved. I don't, that can be that can be off-putting
Yes.
with that. Now, did you ever have an experience when the chief person who is the one who really drives you, that you work with, who will be the key person in saying you go on to the next level, but you have that one person on your committee who's like, Okay, let's look at this. Have you had? Did you have that experience?
Well, I didn't have anybody on the committee to pump the brakes, but I mean, they definitely they definitely had questions about certain procedures, or maybe a procedure was missing. And I mean, that's sort of what happens. What I mean, I had three very strong quant faculty on my committee, and all had their strengths in different areas. So they each wanted to know, well, why is this not here? So I did have, for example, where one professor asked about power analysis, and I had another professor who kind of said, well, that may not be necessary, but it wasn't as if they were having a discussion on whether or not I should put it in. And so at the end of the day, I ran the power analysis and put it in, and then discussed it, why it could be beneficial to have it, and why some may say, it's not necessary, because I had such a large sample size. But no, I mean, they got along, so it helped. And I do think they had some conversations without me, so they probably were on the same page with much of what was presented. And that's definitely a great quality for your advisor. If your advisor is somebody who can kind of take charge and definitely has those conversations ahead of time with your committee, I think it makes for a smoother process.
So let's another question on the committee, and something that I did not give you beforehand, but this is something that everyone needs to know. Your chair, mentor, advisor, again, different universities have different title. That needs to be your ace in the hole. I mean, this person you have to have that relationship with, you have to be comfortable with, because this person will be that deciding factor on whether you meet certain milestones in your dissertation. How did you go about choosing your advisor, and what qualities were you looking for?
Well, I had a switch in advisor and advisor roles, and that started because when you come into our program, you are given your initial advisor. You're assigned your initial advisor, and so you do build a relationship with them, and it's more related to coursework. And my advisor at that time, made a sort of a shift in his position, and so I ended up at that moment I switched for that reason, because my understanding was that he would be focusing on some other projects, and so I thought I was making the right decision by saying maybe this is better for both of us if I. And I found out that he was a little bit like, no, I was fine, I would have been okay, but I did make that first switch, and then I did make another change, and my second change was because the advisor my chair who I ended up having, his work is in educational psychology, and with my focus being on self-efficacy and looking at interest and identity, some of those scales that I looked at in the dissertation or looked at in the data, he had a lot of information on. And my previous advisor, however, was very strong in science. But I was no longer looking at the science achievement. It was focused now more on the algebra achievement. And so that's why I ended up making this shift. So my thing is I can work with personalities. If I'm okay with the personality, if there are personality differences between a chair and an advisee, if you're someone who can navigate a relationship well, regardless of personality, I think you do what you need to do as long as your interests are aligned. That was important for me, that my interests and that the research backgrounds were more aligned, and then also my advisor, my chair, had very, very strong, as I mentioned, in quant. So I definitely needed that with looking at a large data set.
I know for me, the experience was interesting because my chair ended up being someone that I did not know. I chose her, but I did not know her. It's funny because I was getting ready to hit that thing, and when I was to put together my list to go out and ask a professor that I did had him twice. He was excellent. He was like, I'll be your chair, thank you. Woo. When it came down to it, he was like, can't do it. Got too many folks. I was like, oh. Okay. So now I
Mm.
got to go find me someone. Um, and luckily for me, blessing, I was able to find someone who had somewhat similar background to me, as though I went to film school first,
Mm.
and she had a degree in piano, and then she got into education and leadership later. And in looking at her work, I said, okay, this is a person that I want to work with. And what was also awesome is our first phone call, she had looked at the pre-proposal, and she came to me and she said, okay, all right, this okay, I see where you're going, and I will work with you and give you feedback and be in contact with you as much as you want. If you want me to back off, I back off. If you want to be involved, I'll be involved. And when I heard that, I said, we can do this. We can do this. And so
Right.
that was awesome for me, because I had uh, people in my cohort, they would turn something in, and the university said, okay, you have this time frame for them to give you back that feedback. But feedback would wait to the last minute. They wouldn't
Mm.
hear. They wouldn't get direction. Mine was so boss. If I turned in something on Monday, Wednesday I had her feedback.
Right.
The only time I
Right.
really had to wait was over the week. If I turned something in on a Friday, it was going to be Monday or Tuesday, because the weekend came up. But she
Mm.
was so focused. Shout out to Dr. LeBlanc, love you.
Right. Right.
She was so focused and worked with me so well that I was never uneasy throughout my process,
Mm. Mm.
and it was awesome. So again, for those of you who are watching this, that chair, your committee, you have to get those right, particularly that
Right.
chair. Now you
Right.
can have two other people on your committee that may kind of they may ultimately get on your nerves, but if your chair is that star, that guiding light, you will be
Right.
okay. You'll be okay.
It's funny that you gave your you I was thinking the same thing, giving a shout out to Dr. Randy T. Bussey. He what another thing I would say with picking your chair and having your committee is you also want to give your chair an opportunity to let you know who they work well with when you're selecting your committee, because that's important. You want that trifecta, or if you have four people, you want that synergy to happen, and for it to be positive for them, for a positive experience for them as much as for you. So you kind of want their advice. In a perfect world, we pick who we want involved, right? We pick our chair, we pick our committee, we say I want that person. But I think it's very important to make sure that your chair, who is your guiding light, who is the one going out there fighting the fight for you at times, pushing you, giving you the nudge, you want them to help be a part of the process in picking your committee.
Now, before we get to the last question of recommendations,
Mm.
I, let me get to the defense,
Oh,
because
okay.
I never thought about this before and create my questions. But as we're talking about this, and I'm thinking, for those who've never been through the process, let's inform them as much as possible. Let's talk about your defense. How was it? What was your preparation like for it, and how did it? I guess did it live up to its moment? Like for
Mm.
me, I was terrified of it, and I remember asking my chair. I said, "What happens if I fail?" And she
Mm.
kind of chuckled, and I'm thinking, "Why are you chuckling? This is some serious business right here." And she was saying, "Will, you would never get to this point if you're going to fail." So uh, tell me about your defense. How, the whole building up to it, preparing for it, and the sort of a generalization of the questions you were asked.
Okay. Well, I mean, my experience was the same. I had a little nervous, some apprehension, and my chair said the same thing. I wouldn't let you get this far to fail in this process. And I have to say, this is to speak to the coursework at Chapman. There's a course you take as you're preparing for your defense, and they allow those of us who are very close to defending an opportunity to do a mock defense. So that was huge for me because I went in and they asked me the questions that I probably would be asked in an open defense, including the professor in that course. And she also gave some suggestions and some tips about things that I may want to add in or change in my presentation. I then met with my chair and went, after making the changes that were suggested, met with my chair and went through it with him and answered questions. And he had some last minute questions about the dissertation, right? And he said, you know, I'm curious about this and this. And so I just figure I'd ask you now because I may ask you that when it comes time, you know, in your defense. Okay. So what I did, I went back and I looked for more information to possibly respond, ran additional analysis to respond to the questions he had. And that's one of the things they were, of course, most impressed with, because I came in not only with the presentation where I kind of went through it the way the dissertation was set up, mini review of the literature, focused more on the analysis, talked about the future implications, and then I had a section after that where I talked about some of the things that people may ask about. And that responded to the questions that I knew my committee or my advisor had previously or prior to the defense. And then he gave an opportunity. He wanted the defense to be open, so open in that his feedback to me would be open as well for students who were coming through the program so they could see how the process went. Mm-hmm. And it was, I for the most part, I felt I got into a groove. I felt comfortable with it because I had the opportunity to do the mock defense. I had the opportunity to actually go through it over and over, and I was so connected at that point to the work. It was something I was excited to talk about. You know, and then I was nervous after. So the nervous energy, it went away while I was presenting, but then after, when they tell you to step out of the room for a minute while they talk, that's when I started to get a little bit nervous, and why I would second guess at that point, again, I have no idea, but that was sort of, you know, how the night went. And of course I came back in and they said, congratulations, you know, Dr. Howard, and you have that, like you mentioned, you think you're going to jump up and down right then, but you don't. You say thank you very much and take it all in. So yeah, it was, the defense was it was something.
Yeah, I started out reading my PowerPoint like I was the worst presenter as ever, you know, just like, you know, almost reading that bad boy word for word, which was actually noted in the discussion during the question period. And then I just got a little more loose in terms of, okay, let me go ahead and talk about my data, explain my data, and then get into the whole question part. The most comforting thing about my defense was, having done so many iterations, I knew my dissertation like the back of my hand. So when they asked me something, I didn't have to reach for it, like it was there. You know, so it was good. Like I said, I was just really nervous going in because I was like, my future's riding on this bad boy. You know, I don't, you know, get all this, taking out this loan money, and I don't make it. That's a lot of debt for nothing. But it was done. I feel good. It was like, doctor, and I was like, yeah. I was really, really happy. I think me and the wife went out to eat that night. I was like, we celebrating.
Yes, our family, we did the same.
So it's been really cool. It's been really cool. So for last question, because we've covered a lot of ground, and I hope, again, people will watch this and feel like they can make a better decision or know which direction to take their research into, and sort of examining which doctoral programs they want to pursue. What advice do you have for anyone who is interested in pursuing a doctorate?
I would say once you've made the decision that it's something that you have an interest in doing, make sure to look at each program, what the programs offer at different universities, but also do some research on the faculty who teach in those programs. And you want to make sure that you enter a program that, now keeping in mind that your research interests may shift over time. But we know we all come in sort of with this idea about something that interests us. So you want to make sure that there are faculty who have strong research backgrounds in your area of interest. That would be probably a huge piece of advice, best advice I could give someone pursuing a program, looking for the right program for them. And one other thing, if you're going through the process of applying to programs and they require like a GRE, right? They require a certain score. It's important to take that seriously and to do the work that you need to do to get the score you need to get, although we know the testing is a separate topic. But at the end of the day, some universities, some institutions look at those scores as a key piece of data determining who they bring into their program. So that would be my 2 pieces of advice for someone pursuing a doctorate.
Awesome. That is awesome. I say the same thing, particularly program professors. I wanted a program that focused on practical skills because I wanted to be a change leader, which is one of the reasons I chose an EDD over PhD, and made sure that my program actually focused on the research and the skills necessary for me to go, I learned it today, how can I apply it now to leave for tomorrow? The second thing I'm going to tell folks, and I tell everyone, you get into that dissertation phase, you work that thing like a job. It is not a hobby. It is not something you do in your spare time. It is a job, and treat it as such. And that means you write every day. I don't care if it's only an hour, 2 hours. You write every day, because if you don't get yourself in that mindset of this is a job and I must put in the work, you will be an ABD. And there are just too many ABDs out there, and some reasons could be financial. You may decide, hey, I don't need this, I don't want this anymore. But I think it is. I don't know. I don't want to say it's a shame, because again, there's many different reasons why people are ABD. But I would think that if you were going to work that hard to do that, you know, two and a half years, a coursework or whatever, and you get to that dissertation phase and you don't finish, I think to see it through is something that I think you need to do.
It's powerful.
Yeah, and so you gotta do it. So hopefully today y'all learned a lot, and I didn't talk too much and let Dr. Howard, do her thing today. Again, people, thanks for watching the Dr. Will Show, and again, thank you, Dr. Howard, for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And another people, keep watching. We're going to do our lean-in show at some point. So keep watching, and I thank you.